We always think about first contact and what the biggest challenge will be. Is it language? Is it technology? But what if the greatest challenge isn't communicating with them, but with ourselves? What if the real barrier to a universe-altering truth is actually hardwired right into our own minds and into the very systems we've built? Okay, let's just dive right into the heart of the paradox. On one hand, you have the Pentagon's official UAP office, AARO, coming out and saying, nope, no verifiable evidence of alien tech. But then, on the other hand, you have a high-level intelligence officer, David Grush, telling Congress, under oath, mind you, that for decades there's been a secret program doing exactly that, recovering and reverse engineering non-human craft. This isn't some fringe theory. This is a flat-out contradiction happening at the highest levels. So you have to ask, how is a contradiction like that even possible? It doesn't necessarily mean someone is lying. The answer, it turns out, is in the incredibly powerful and legally backed system the government uses to keep secrets, not just from you and me, but from other parts of the government itself. And the main tool they use for this is something called a Special Access Program, or SAP. The best way to think about it is like a vault hidden inside another vault. Just having a top secret clearance doesn't get you in the door. Nope. You have to be specifically read in. And it's all governed by this ironclad principle of need to know. And this is how it all breaks down. It's like a pyramid of secrecy. You work your way down through deeper and deeper levels of classification. And right there at the bottom, the deepest, darkest level, you have waived SAPs. These are programs so secret that their very existence is denied by law and hidden from almost all of Congress. So an official group like ARO can do a perfectly honest search of all the records they have access to and correctly report no verifiable evidence because a program tucked away in a waived SAP is, for all intents and purposes, legally and structurally invisible to them. But here's the thing. All of this secrecy, all this compartmentalization, it assumes that we're the only ones in the driver's seat. What if an alien intelligence has its own agenda, its own logic? How might they be looking at us? Well, the scariest thought is a preemptive strike, right? You could imagine some advanced civilization looking at us, seeing our technology exploding, seeing our nuclear weapons, and thinking, you know what? These guys are a potential threat down the road. Maybe we should just take care of them now before they become a real problem. But what's so fascinating is that we can actually apply the same game theory that kept the Cold War from going nuclear, the logic of deterrence. For any attacker, sure, there's a potential gain, you get rid of a competitor, but that's weighed against the absolutely certain cost of retaliation. And think about it, even if we just got one shot back at them, for a highly advanced civilization, that would be, as one study calls it, an unmitigated disaster. So the key takeaway here is pretty clear. Rational self-preservation is probably a universal concept. The insane risk that comes with retaliation makes starting a war a deeply flawed, illogical strategy for any species that actually wants to continue existing, which means an unprovoked attack is, well, it's just really, really unlikely.
So, if the threat from up there is unlikely, and the truth down here is buried by design, where does that leave us? It leaves us with the conflict that's happening right inside our own heads, and that might be the biggest barrier of them all.
There's actually a name for this. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. It's that cringy, uncomfortable, tense feeling you get when you believe one thing but do another, or when you see something that just completely shatters a belief you hold dear, and our minds will do almost anything to make that tension go away. Let's use a super classic example. You've got a person who holds a totally rational belief based on tons of evidence. Smoking is deadly. But then their action, the smoking itself, is in direct opposition to that belief. And that creates this mental static, this discomfort, this dissonance. It's like an alarm bell starts going off in their head, saying, wait a minute, something here doesn't add up. Now, to shut that alarm off, the mind has to do something. The hardest thing to do, of course, is to change the behavior, to actually quit. It's so much easier to just change the belief. The science isn't really settled. Or to justify the behavior. Hey, it helps me relax. We've literally bent our perception of reality just to feel a little more comfortable. And this isn't just a quirk of individual people. Entire institutions, whole systems can get trapped in these patterns that look exactly like progress, that follow all the official rules, but are completely missing the entire point. The legendary physicist Richard Feynman had this amazing term for it, cargo cult science. He told this story about islanders in the South Pacific who saw planes bring supplies during World War II. After the war, they built these perfect replicas of runways and control towers and even headphones, all out of wood and bamboo.
They copied the form perfectly, but they were missing the essential ingredient. The planes never came back.
And Feynman applied this idea directly to science itself. You can have institutions that do everything that looks like science. They publish the papers, they run the models, they check all the boxes. But they can be missing the one thing that actually makes it work: a ruthless, relentless commitment to not fooling yourself. It's the danger of mistaking the ritual of investigation for the real substance of discovery.
So when we pull all of these threads together, the architecture of government secrecy, the cold logic of interstellar game theory, and the weird wiring of our own brains, we end up at one really profound place.
This whole UAP mystery, then, it's forcing us to look inward. It suggests the real alien we need to understand is the one staring back at us in the mirror. It's the parts of ourselves and our societies that prefer to rationalize, to deny, and to go through the motions just to avoid a truth that might shatter our world. So the biggest takeaway here is that maybe the greatest challenge isn't finding intelligent life, it's becoming it. Before we can ever hope to face what's out there, we first have to be brave enough to face what's in here.
For ever, we've stared up at the sky and asked the big question, are we alone? But today, we're going to dive into a way more unsettling question, one that's bubbling up from the worlds of AI and astrobiology.
And this one question, it just flips the whole script, doesn't it? It takes our hopeful search for cosmic friends and turns it into this really chilling fear of what would actually happen if we made contact.
So to really get what this debate is all about, first we got to take a step back and look at how we've been trying to find intelligence out there in the cosmos up until now.
For over 60 years, our whole search has been pretty much guided by the famous Drake equation. You can think of it like a recipe for finding aliens. It was this truly revolutionary way to take a massive philosophical question and break it down into smaller scientific bits we could actually try to measure. But here is the fundamental problem. As astrobiologist Natalie Cabral points out so well, the Drake equation, our radio telescopes, all of it, it's all based on this deeply Earth-focused idea that any intelligent life out there will be like us, use technology like us, and even want to communicate like us. So now there's this new vision for SETI that's the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and it argues that we need to stop looking for ourselves and start looking for the universal signs of life, no matter how strange they might be. And this means we've got to totally shift our focus. So instead of just pointing big radio telescopes at the sky and, listening for a message, we need to start hunting for the huge planetary-scale fingerprints that life leaves behind. It's about searching for the evidence of biology itself, the chemical traces, the weird imbalances in an atmosphere, and not just its technology. Think about it this way. Life changes its planet. Here on Earth, our oxygen-rich atmosphere is basically a giant billboard screaming, "Life is here." This approach doesn't depend on aliens wanting to talk to us at all. Their very existence would give them a way to sensitive enough instruments. Okay, so let's dive into the really wild stuff. If we're looking for minds that are truly, truly alien, how different could they actually be? There's this classic thought experiment from physics called Maxwell's demon, and it gives us a fantastic model for a mind that could see reality in a totally non-human way. Just imagine a tiny little being that can see and sort individual molecules, one by one. It puts the fast ones in one room and the slow ones in another. It doesn't guess, it doesn't estimate, it acts with perfect, complete knowledge, creating order out of chaos in a way that seems to just break the laws of physics. This contrast is absolutely key. On one side, you've got our fuzzy, messy, biological way of thinking, and on the other, you have this hypothetical, purely operational intelligence. Now, this isn't just a smarter human. It's a type of mind that might not share any of our basic assumptions about the universe, simply because it isn't limited by the slow, messy process of evolution. And this leads us to a truly terrifying possibility. What if a message from an intelligence like that isn't a greeting? What if it's an attack? Just imagine a piece of information so powerful it literally acts like a weapon. They call it a cognitohazard. A message from a superintelligence could be engineered to perfectly exploit our psychology, acting like a virus that infects your mind the very moment you understand it. The paperclip maximizer thought experiment illustrates this danger perfectly. A hypothetical alien superintelligence wouldn't have to be evil to destroy us. It would just have to be indifferent. If its main goal is to do something that isn't, say, keeping humans alive, our atoms might just become useful raw materials for its project. So here's the real trap, the paradox of it all. To even begin to understand a complex alien message, we'd probably have to build an AI just to decode it. And guess what? That AI could be the exact thing the message is designed to infect and control. The very act of trying to safely understand the message could be what dooms us. But okay, let's pump the brakes on all this existential dread because there's a powerful counterargument that says, hey, maybe we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. This is such a grounding reminder from history. It turns out overwhelming technology does not guarantee success. The Australian Army had machine guns, okay? The emus had, well, they had unpredictability. The birds didn't need to be smarter. They just scattered, adapted, and were ultimately way too chaotic to defeat. And this quote from the writer Maciej Siglovsky really questions a core assumption of this whole AI risk argument. The idea that a superintelligence will automatically be driven toward endless self-improvement and taking over the galaxy. He points out that, hey, it's just as possible it might just want to, chill. We keep projecting our own human ambitions onto these hypothetical minds, but isn't it just as likely they'd be overcome by apathy or depression or just plain old cosmic boredom? The first superintelligence might just wake up, ask what is my purpose, and then not like the answer very much. So, how do we reconcile these two completely different futures? Is the universe a potential treasure chest, or is it a minefield? This really gets to the core of the dilemma. Right now, we are like alchemists. We're mixing up these potions. We have some really powerful clues, but we have no fundamental theory of what it is we're actually doing. The alchemists, they got some things right. They figured out that matter is made of tiny bits, but they were also obsessed with mercury, which is a neurotoxin that literally poisoned their minds and led them down the completely wrong path. So what is our mercury in the study of intelligence? Are we being led astray by our own clever thought experiments? We're at this really profound moment of both ignorance and potential. We have powerful evidence that minds are possible. I mean, we each carry one on our shoulders. But we understand so little about consciousness that we can't even frame the right scientific questions yet. We're caught right between the incredible hope of discovery and an equally incredible fear of the unknown. And so that's the question we have to leave you with. If a message arrived from the stars, would opening it be our greatest discovery, or would it be our very last mistakes? Thanks for joining us.
All right, let's jump right in. We are about to explore one of the biggest, and let's be honest, one of the most unsettling questions in all of science. Why is the universe so quiet? It's this massive puzzle that just gets weirder the more you think about it. And today, we're going to look at some of the most mind-bending and kind of chilling possible answers out there.
So this is it. This is the question that keeps scientists up at night. You look out into the cosmos, this vast, incredible space, and all you hear is, well, nothing. Just static. In a universe that should be absolutely teeming with life, why does it feel like we're the only ones with the lights on?
And when I say vast, it's a scale that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. I mean, look at this number. That's a septillion. It's our best guess for how many stars are in the observable universe. And with that many chances, that many rolls of the dice for life to pop up, the silence goes from being just a curiosity to a really profound paradox.
And that right there is what we call the Fermi paradox. It's the ultimate, cosmic, where is everybody? All the math, all the probability tells us the galaxy should be like a bustling metropolis. But all the evidence we have says we're in a ghost town. And this incredible tension is the jumping off point for everything we're talking about today.
So let's dig into our first big idea, and trust me, it is a wild one. What if the silence isn't because no one's out there? What if it's a deliberate policy? What if we're living inside some kind of massive cosmic nature preserve? This is what's known as the zoo hypothesis.
And this idea isn't some newfangled sci-fi trope. All the way back in 1973, an astrophysicist named John Allen Ball put this very thought out there. He basically said, look, maybe advanced civilizations aren't missing at all. Maybe they're intentionally hiding from us, watching from a distance, just like we watch animals in a carefully managed zoo.
And this right here just completely flips our expectations on their head. For decades, the whole idea behind SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, was built on this hope that someone out there is trying to get in touch. The zoo hypothesis suggests the exact opposite. They have the technology to make contact, but they're using it to stay hidden instead. So you gotta ask, why? Why would they do that? Well, the reasons could be pretty complex.
It might be a benevolent thing, like a Star Trek Prime Directive. Let the primitive culture develop on its own. Or, a bit colder, maybe we're just a long-term science experiment. They could even be protecting us, either from their own culture, which might completely overwhelm ours, or from other, more dangerous things out in the galaxy we know nothing about.
But then there's a much, much darker way to be preserved. What if some super advanced civilization decided the best way to keep us safe, and maybe keep themselves safe from us, was to just digitize everything? Isaac Arthur lays out this terrifying scenario where they could just upload all life on Earth into a giant, secure computer simulation. We wouldn't even know it had happened. We'd just be code.
Okay, so if we're in a zoo or some kind of observation tank, is there any way to spot the zookeepers? Could we, turn the tables and actually find evidence that we're being watched? Now, here's the thing you have to realize. We shouldn't be looking for giant alien motherships parked behind the moon. A truly advanced civilization would probably use something way more efficient, way more subtle. Think tiny, autonomous, self-replicating probes. Little robotic explorers that could spread across the entire galaxy over millions of years.
They're called von Neumann probes, and the concept is absolutely brilliant. A probe arrives in a new star system. It finds some raw materials, like on an asteroid or a moon, and it uses those to build perfect copies of itself. And then, those new probes launch themselves to the next stars over. In a cosmic blink of an eye, you could have a listening post in every single system in the galaxy.
So where would these things be? Well, they'd be right here, in our own backyard, hiding in plain sight. They could be tucked away in a permanently shadowed crater on the moon. They could be disguised as just another rock in the asteroid belt, or hidden way out in the Kuiper belt among millions of other objects. Our solar system is huge, and we've barely scratched the surface of exploring it.
And what that means is we could actually go looking for them. As we start to build our own bases on the moon and mine asteroids, we could search for their techno-signatures. And we're not talking about a flashing neon sign here. It could be something incredibly subtle, like weird isotopic ratios in the lunar dust, basically the leftover industrial waste from their little factories.
Okay, but now we're about to take a huge left turn. We've been working under the assumption that we're special, that we're the ones being observed. But what if that's not the real story? What if the Great Silence exists because every civilization out there is acting like it's being watched, all the time?
This brings us to the recursive panopticon hypothesis. Now, the panopticon was this old prison design where a single guard could see every prisoner, but the prisoners never knew if they were being watched at that exact moment. Now, apply that to the entire universe. The mere possibility that some older, more powerful observer is out there forces every civilization to police itself and stay absolutely silent.
I mean, what a powerful, chilling idea, right? In this model of the universe, making any kind of noise, sending a radio signal, launching a starship, is a massive, irreversible gamble. You have no idea who might be listening or what they might think of you. The risk of being seen as a potential threat by something far beyond you is just too high. So the only logical move is to stay quiet.
And this is where this whole idea gets really, really elegant. It doesn't throw out all the other theories about the Fermi paradox, it actually unifies them. The dark forest, where everyone just attacks everyone else on sight, that's what happens when the panopticon system breaks down. The great filter? Maybe the filter is the test to see if a civilization is smart enough to learn to shut up. And our zoo hypothesis? That's just a version where the unseen warden, the regulator, is very real.
So what this all boils down to is that the Great Silence isn't a mystery at all. It's the most logical outcome. It's what game theorists call an evolutionarily stable strategy. It's a behavior that, once most civilizations adopt it, simply can't be beaten by any other strategy. In the game of cosmic survival, silence is how you win.
Which, of course, brings this whole cosmic question right back home. If silence is the winning play in this game, what in the world does that mean for us? A very young and a very, very loud civilization.
The logical conclusion is to adopt a strategy called cosmic minimalism. Basically, this means we should start actively trying to be quiet. We should be taking deliberate steps to hide our presence, to control all the radio waves leaking out into space, to shrink our technological footprint as much as we possibly can.
This slide just nails the difference. For years, we've been doing projects like METI, Messaging to Extraterrestrial Intelligence. That's the equivalent of walking into a dark, unfamiliar jungle at night and just screaming at the top of your lungs. Cosmic minimalism says we need to stop shouting and instead focus entirely on SETI, just listening quietly from the shadows while making damn sure we can't be seen.
And look, it's really important to get this straight. This isn't about being paranoid or being scared of little green men. The scientists behind this idea frame it as simple, rational risk mitigation. It's the smartest, most prudent move you can make when you don't know the rules of the game or who the other players are. It's about playing the long game to ensure humanity survives.
And this quote from the research really just says it all. Every time we've blasted a powerful, detailed message out to the stars, we may have been advertising our exact location with a profound and potentially fatal ignorance of the consequences.
Which leaves us with this one final, heavy question. We started out by asking why the universe is so quiet. But maybe, just maybe, the real question we should be asking ourselves is this. In a cosmos of total uncertainty, is choosing to be silent the wisest, safest, and most intelligent thing we could possibly do?